has a very basic interest in that your dishes be kosher too, which is a pain in the butt, because if you're an observant Jewish family, you have to have dishes for meat and milk, then you have to have Passover dishes for meat and milk as well. So that's 4 sets of dishes right there.
I'm in the process of doing this now. Yeah, it's a big pain.
And you can kind of blame the Torah.
Right here, it's all the red cow's fault. I love that there's a red cow in Torah. I really do.
Do you like red cows, or?
No, I just like it. It sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I can understand the Israelites complaining about a lack of water. So this isn't complaining about a lack of meat, which I would not understand as a vegetarian. But you're out in the desert and there's no water.
Right.
Totally understand complaining about that.
But, okay. Here's the thing, and I'm going to keep going back to this rereading of number 16. If we look at chapter 20 of Numbers, this whole thing is it's a critique of leadership. And it's a very public critique of leadership, right? This is where Moshe and Aaron find out that they're not going to be able to enter the Promised Land. And Aaron dies at the end of 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says in verse 27, so Moshe did as Yehovah commanded him. They went up Hill's hill before the eyes of the entire community. So this is a really public moment, and it's a critique of leadership. And this is interesting because just 3 chapters earlier, Moshe is acting like a big, all-powerful leader, and people are dying. Well, then a few chapters later, he's told he doesn't get to go into the Promised Land. And I think that there's a connection there. I think Moshe's overall leadership style is being critiqued.
Why do you think Moshe did not get to go into the Promised Land?
Well, it's not, people, and I even learned growing up, Moshe didn't get into the Promised Land because he hit the rock. But I mean, if you reread the text here, it's verse 8, where God says, take the staff and assemble the community, you and Aaron your brother, you are to speak to the boulder before their eyes, so that it gives forth its water. Thus you are to bring out for them water from the boulder, they may give drink to the assembly and to their cattle. So Moshe took the staff from before the presence of Yehovah as he commanded him. He said to them, now hearken, from this boulder must we bring you out water. Moshe raised his hand and struck the boulder with his staff twice, so that abundant water came out. Okay, he doesn't really seem to do anything wrong there.
He says, shall we bring you forth water from this rock?
Right.
That's the problem.
But it's not about striking the rock.
It's not about striking the rock.
Because I learned it was about anger.
Yeah.
Moshe let his anger get out of control, but he doesn't let his anger get out of control here. That happens in number 16.
Well, he does when he says, we will bring forth water from the rock. So instead of saying God will bring forth water from the rock. So, because God then says, you did not sanctify me before the children of Israel.
Right.
And that's why I'm punishing you. So he was claiming credit.
Right. He's starting to think of himself as a god, is what Moshe is doing. And the beginning of this is in number 16. And I have to keep going back there, and I have to think that they're all connected, because they're all, these are really bad patterns that Moshe has. And they're all connected. And I don't think we can criticize one without criticizing another.
Now, in the Outscroll commentary on the rock, it says, the definite article "the" indicates that this was a known rock. Sages teach that God had created a rock that he used often as a source of miraculous waters. It's Numbers 20, verse 8. This was the rock that the angel revealed to Hagar when her son Ishmael was dying of thirst, from which Moses was commanded to draw water nearly 40 years earlier. That same rock accompanied the people throughout their wanderings as long as Miriam was alive. So just imagine that. The children of Israel were carrying this rock around, and when they needed water, so do you think there's really this one rock that they're schlepping around the desert? So imagine it gets pretty hot. And
Are you asking if they're really carrying it around the desert?
Yeah, do you think they were carrying around a rock in the desert for 40 years? That Moshe
it doesn't
would
seem
hit
likely, but it's possible. I mean, it's not about the rock. I mean, it's about Miriam. Miriam dies, and now they're concerned with water. Because Miriam was always the source of water. I mean, a number of the Midrashim talk about that.
It says in the Al-Scroll commentary on Numbers chapter 20, verse 29, the entire house of Israel mourned Aaron. Aaron was mourned by everyone, men and women alike, because Aaron pursued peace and extended himself to bring harmony between adversaries and between man and wife. By contrast, Moses was not as universally mourned, because it was his responsibility to judge, sometimes admonish, thus lessening the love that some felt for him. So I always felt his kinship with Moshe, because it would be nice for me to just use my blog to bring people together and to restore harmony between man and wife. But instead I have to judge and pursue some painful stories. And so therefore this has sometimes lessened the love that some in my community have felt for me. So in Numbers chapter 21, verse 8, there's this plague, and there are these serpents, and Moses says, God says, put a serpent up on a pole, and everyone who looks at it will live. Do you think this is prophesying Jesus? Because that's what I learned. Like, you look...
Oh, I didn't learn that.
You didn't learn that as a good Christian?
No.
Oh, I definitely learned this.
No, I did not.
Just look and you will be saved.
I think that's really creepy if Christians want to suggest that this is some kind of prophetic moment for Christianity, because it's Jesus as a burning snake. I mean, that's... No. Make yourself a burning snake and put it on a banner pole, which shall be... Whoever's been bitten and then sees it will live. I mean, just from a literary or historical perspective, it just seems that some of the this seems like idolatry right here.
Mm-hmm,
This is really interesting, and it seems like some of the cultural traditions of surrounding communities are infiltrating the text here from a literary perspective. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I mean, if we're just going to look at this as a text.
I remember just before last Yom Kippur, some friends strapped me to a cross on the back of a van and just drove me around the community. A lot of people just reacted in a really negative way. They didn't see the symbolism that we were trying to communicate. Oh. And like, they reacted in this really hostile way, but I kept telling them, look back at that Numbers is chapter 21, verse 8. And
it's really great.
It's a shame that people don't have more of a literary sense about them.
Right.
To appreciate.
Right. They could have seen that as a prophetic
symbol.
moment,
prophetic
or the moral
moment.
leader you were going to become.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, look upon me and live. And like, a lot of people thought it was presumptuous or just in bad taste. Or, I mean, even some of the non-Jews like took offense. They thought that I was imitating their God, and was like, I mean. Like, you don't read a telephone bill the same way you read a poem. You don't read a poem the same way you read a love letter. So we have to learn to understand the different genres of expression out there. So when I put myself on a cross and drive around Pico Robertson, that's like a literary moment. Like, look on the symbol and live. It's not me saying that I'm God. Just remember that. I don't claim to be God. I'm not even the Messiah. I'm just a very naughty blogger.
I would really love to see that, though. If we could reenact that one day.
Maybe right before Yom Kippur.
Well, it's like the, have you seen those around Sukkot, the traveling sukkah things on the trucks? The guys, I was living in Santa Monica, and I was walking down near on Ocean Avenue near the water, obviously, and a guy had driven up in his portable sukkah and wanted to talk to me about coming into a sukkah. And
how are you dressed, may I ask?
I was in running shorts and a top. It was.
How did
he
you
was
know you were Jewish?